All right, guys, if you will flip into your note packets to notes 3-10, we're going to be working on writing linear equations, and this time we're going to be using 2 points instead of point and a slope. So when you're writing linear equations given 2 points, they're going to give you 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2. So you have to use the slope formula, which is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then after you do that, you pick a point and you use the point slope formula. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. All right, so moving on with this, we're just going to do the first 6. That's plenty of examples for y'all to see. We're not going to do the back. So this is my x1, my y1, my x2, my y2. So the first thing that I want y'all to show me is the plug-in for the slope formula. So we're going to do -1 minus 7 over 1 minus -3. Okay, once you have that, you just have to open up a fraction, -1 minus 7, move down, 1 minus -3. It'll automatically simplify it for you, so this is -2. Okay, that's step 1. Once you have step 1 done, you need to pick one of these points. Now, it doesn't matter which one you plug back into the formula as long as you're plugging one of them back into the formula. And the one that I'm going to pick is always the smaller numbers. So I'm going to box that I'm going to use this order pair. So that's the one I know that I'm using. And I'm going to do y minus, the y is -1, equals the m we found was -2, parentheses x minus, and the x I picked was 1. First thing I do is change those double negatives, which I have one right there. So connect and make a plus, and now I distribute. -2 times x is -2x, and -2 times -1 is +2. I bring down y plus 1 equals, and to get y by itself, we just need to subtract 1. So I get y equals -2x, and this now becomes a +1. So for example 2, this is my x1 and my y1, my x2 and my y2. The first thing I'm going to do is my slope, and then this is second step. So I'm going to do -4, because that's what y2 is, minus -7, because that's what y1 is, over 3 minus -6. Alpha y equals -4 minus -7 over 3 minus -6, and this gives me 1/3. Okay, now I'm going to pick a point. This one has some smaller numbers than the other one, so again, I'm going to use the second point, and I'm going to do y minus -4, because that's the y I picked, equals, the m I found was 1/3, times x minus 3, because that's the x I picked. First thing I do is fix those double negatives by connecting and making a plus. 1/3 times x is a 1/3 x, and 1/3 times -3, if you need to do that in your calculator, should be -1. I'm going to bring down y plus 4 equals, and now to get y by itself, I just need to subtract the 4. That gives me y equals, your slope will not change, so 1/3 x, and a -1 and a -4 making -5. For number 3, this is my x1 and my y1, my x2 and my y2. So the first thing that I'm going to do is that slope formula. So y2 would be -6 minus y1 would be -1 over x2 is 4 minus x1 is 2. I'm going to open up that fraction. -6 minus -1 over 4 minus 2. I plug in, I get -5/2. Now I'm going to look at my 2 points. I'm going to go with the first one this time because that's smaller numbers. So we're going to do y minus -1, because that's the y I picked, equals the slope I got was -5/2 times x minus, and the x I picked was 2. Fixing my double negative first, so connect and make a plus. Negative 5 over 2 times x is negative 5 over 2x. And negative 5 over 2 times negative 2 becomes positive 5. Or if you need to use the calculator for that, go ahead and use calculator. I'm going to bring down y plus 1 equals. And now to get y by itself, I just need to subtract 1. This gives me y equals negative 5 over 2x plus 4. Okay, for example 4, x1, y1, x2, y2. We're going to do 5 minus 6 over 2 minus 1, y2, y1, x2, x1. If you need your calculator, open up a fraction, it'll automatically simplify. And this is negative 1. Okay, the point I'm going to use is 1/6 because that 1 is easier to use. So we're going to do y minus, the y I picked was 6, equals negative 1 was the slope I got, times x minus, and the x I picked was 1. This one doesn't have any double negatives. So I'm going to go straight into distributing. So negative 1 times x is negative 1x. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. I bring down y minus 6 equals. And to get the y by itself, I have to plus 6. That gives me y equals negative 1x plus 7. Okay, just 2 more examples. This is my x1 and my y1, my x2 and my y2. First thing I have to do is plug in that slope formula from up there. So we're going to do y2, which is negative 5, minus y1 is 1, over x2 is 0, minus x1 is negative 8. Showing you alpha y equals, again, negative 5 minus 1 over 0 minus negative 8. And that gives me negative 3/4. Okay, so from here, I'm going to pick the point with 0. Anytime there's a 0, 0 is the easiest thing to go with. So we're going to do y minus, and the y I picked was negative 5, equals, the slope I have is negative 3/4 times x minus, and the x I picked was 0. I'm going to fix this double negative right there. And negative 3/4 times x is negative 3/4 x. Negative 3/4 times 0 would be 0. So if you want to put that plus 0 as a placeholder, you can. Or if you just want to drop it and not use it, you can drop it. Now to get y by itself, we just have to subtract the 5. And that gives me y equals negative 3/4 x, because that slope will never change. And 0 minus 5 is negative 5. All right, for my, last example, this is my x1 and my y1, my x2 and my y2. We're going to do 7 minus negative 8, y2 minus y1, over 2 minus negative 3, x2 minus x1. Alpha y equals 7 minus 8, negative 8, and 2 minus negative 3, and that gives me an answer of 3. The point that I'm going to pick, it really doesn't matter because they're both bigger numbers. I'm going to go with the 2, 7. So I'm going to do y minus, and then the y I picked was 7, equals 3 times x minus, and the x I picked was 2. Since I picked positive numbers, I don't have any double negatives, so I just distribute. This would be 3x. This would be negative 6. I've got y minus 7 equals. To get y by itself, I just need to add 7. And that gives me y equals 3x plus 1. Okay, so now you're going to try a worksheet on your own, doing the same thing. You can use calculator for this. Just show me the plug-in and then using that formula. If you have questions, stop and ask.